I have a second channel, Cube Comp MTDX. Hey everybody, so here's the motherboard that we used last night in the 7th episode of Cooking with Intel. This is the Intel desktop board, D102 D102 GGC2. Crazy model numbers. Of course, as you may have noticed, it is an eMachines OEM board. The biggest frustration I had with it was the fact that it was shutting down even when I had the power supply jumpered across to stay on. As of course, if you watch the video, you notice I had a little bit of a disaster at the end. The ramen noodle soup in the pot tipped and some spilt on the board right here. And then once I pulled it off, the little block came off with the pot, and as soon as I set it down, half of it fell off on the floor. Yeah, it was wonderful. So if we look at the motherboard itself, I've went and installed a crappy stick of RAM. Just a little 256 megabyte stick of DDR2. Yeah, that's horrible. So if it fries the RAM for whatever reason, big whoop. So the Pentium D820 CPU is still installed. I'm curious if that processor still works. We're going to try that. We're going to try this board and see if it works and see if the CPU still works. Because if it does, I think I have a different motherboard around here that's it's definitely not an Intel desktop board. I think it's an Asus OEM board for HP. So if we look at the back of this, look at all that discoloration. Now, I pointed this out in the previous video. However, this may not have been just a result of last night. This motherboard used to run a Pentium D. I think it was a Pentium D805. That's what it ran for pretty much all of its service life in its original eMachine computer. So that could have been this result of a lifetime of running a Pentium D CPU. So we're going to appropriately cool the CPU this time. I got this heatsink fan. I'm not going to bother with the thermal paste, so I'm just going to reuse what's on there. And now we're going to go ahead and wipe off what's on the cooler. Imagine anything would be better than what we was doing with it last night. So I'm going to pop this on there. Crappy push pins. I don't much care for them, but it's just something temporary. Because this board, even if it does work, it's going to end up getting recycled anyway. This board is a piece of crap anyway. It's an ATI Radeon Express 200 chipset board. Doesn't support anything more than a Pentium D. So yeah, it's not like it was a great board to begin with. Give me just a second here, I'll get this installed. Okay, 4 clicks and it's in there. So, yeah, we're going to see what this thing's going to do. I'm really curious. I'm more curious about that processor, because what we did to it last night was just flat out torture. And the only reason the processor would still work is because the motherboard was being nice and shutting off power to save the CPU. But the motherboard was really just kind of in the way. I mean, we got some steam last night off the pot of soup. However, if it wasn't for this thing shutting off like it was doing, it would have got a lot hotter. Okay, so I'm going to plug this in and plug in our little front panel header. We'll give this thing some power and see what happens here. Not looking good. Yeah, that definitely did cook it, because look, the power indicator is not even lit. It just stays on. But that makes me wonder, is it trying to apply power to the CPU? Let's unplug this fan, see if it gets hot. So it's still running. You see the power supply fan over there running. Power supply is not jumpered. Okay, there's a quicker way of determining this. So yeah, guys, that little spill, that little spill definitely did cause some problems. That's crazy, these push pins. You gotta have a screwdriver pretty much to get them open. It's like going back to the 90s, early 2000s with AMD, for example. 90s with Intel, and early 2000s with Intel, back when you had to have a screwdriver to mount and remove your CPU heatsink. Okay, let's just see what happens here. Let's see if the CPU starts to get hot. Yeah. Oh yeah. It still is supplying juice to the processor, but I don't think it's actually really doing much of anything. I think it's just wasting power through the CPU. So we definitely know our motherboard is done for. That spill last night definitely did it in. So, for example, if I disconnect the power supply and try to and switch on the power supply, you see the fan does not turn. So it's definitely not an issue with the power supply. Now watch if I pop this back in there. You may have seen the power supply fan twitch for a second. So yeah, the motherboard. The circuitry that latches on the power supply is permanently latched. So yeah, let's try one more thing. Pop this back in there. Let's see if the CPU gets hotter quicker when I press the power button on, like the computer power button. Yeah, it's definitely heating up. Shut that off, I'm sure. Yeah, it's pretty much too hot to really touch. Okay, so we know our CPU is not done. That doesn't mean that it's usable as a computer processor at this point, because when these things get that hot, it doesn't take much to start to damage them. So that concludes this video. So what I'm going to probably end up doing is I got a computer back there somewhere that's got a crappy early 775 motherboard in it. It'll be a perfect candidate for this. It's got a Pentium 4 CPU dropped in it right now, but I'll pull that out and put this Pentium D820 in. I'm kind of curious to see if it'll actually still post. And if it does, regardless, because we know the CPU is still heating up. I may be doing a cooking with Intel 7.5 to where we actually finish off that processor. So anyways, hope y'all enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Well, everybody, that's it for this video, but don't forget there's a lot more interesting stuff on the channel to check out. Also, if this is your first time visiting this channel, feel free to subscribe to keep your channel, and also don't forget to tick the bell so that way we get notified of new video posts. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, but if you really didn't like it, there is the alternative option available as well. Also, feel free to check out my second channel, CubeComp MTDX. There you'll find videos about bicycling, weather, elevator tours, and all sorts of other neat, interesting stuff. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Feel free to come back, and thank you for your support.